trees on the street had already dropped the last of their leaves when I saw Wada again. That night, I stopped by the salva for the first time in close to a month. I hadn't felt much like going for a while. Even when I'd passed it on the street, I just walked right by. But as the weather turned colder day by day, I found myself craving their coffee. I opened the door and said, "Oh." Wada was sitting at a table in the back. Our eyes met right away. He had noticed me too. I thought, I screwed this up, didn't I, and tried to get away with just a quick hello, but he stood up conscientiously and waited for me to come over. "Nice to see you," I said, feeling a bit flustered as I sat across from him. "It's been a while," he replied with his usual cool tone. The waitress brought over water and asked, "Are you ready to order?" At the moment, I was still thinking I could just say hi, then change seats and order my coffee, so I said, "Not yet." She nodded and walked away, still smiling. It was a little while before Wada spoke. "How have you been?" Okay, I guess. And you?" I replied. "So-so," he said cheerfully and took a sip of his coffee. Was he still waiting for his ex-girlfriend to show up? But he'd told me himself he was done with that. Just as that thought crossed my mind, Wada suddenly said, "I've been waiting for you." Then he reached into his bag and took out a paperback. I realized it was the Saniatsu Mushano Koji book I'd left behind that night before my trip, Friendship. So much had happened, I had completely forgotten about the book. I would have never dreamt that Wada had it. "You held on to it all this time for me?" I asked as he handed me the book. "That night, I noticed the book after you'd left. I asked the owner if he would give it to you the next time you came in, but he said he didn't know who you were. He claimed he'd never seen you before." There was no way the owner didn't know me. We'd seen each other dozens of times. I was basically one of the regulars. "That's how I ended up holding on to the book. I didn't have a way to contact you, so I've been stopping by from time to time to see if you were here. My timing must have been bad, though, because I never ran into you. I felt guilty about it, but just waiting got boring, so I ended up reading your whole book." I listened to him tell me all this with my mouth hanging open, and then I saw the owner standing at the counter, and I finally understood what had happened. He was polishing the glasses, pretending not to recognize me. I watched him closely until our eyes met for an instant. Well, that was dumb. He probably had no idea that Wada was waiting for someone else. He'd gotten all worked up over nothing. "I'm so sorry for all this," I said, and bowed to Wada. "No, honestly, it was a nice opportunity for me to read a book that wasn't up the hill. I should be the one thanking you," he said with a playful laugh. After this strange twist, I felt like I couldn't hold back any longer. I looked down and felt my shoulders start to tremble. "Are you okay?" Wada watched me with a worried look on his face, but when he realized that I was just laughing, he started laughing too. Little by little, we were starting to feel comfortable with each other. I realized that in my heart, I was genuinely delighted to see him again. It's true, seeing him made me incredibly happy. It didn't matter what he felt about me. It was pointless to worry about that. There was nothing I could do to change that fact. I said, looking up at him again, "I'm glad to see you." I couldn't leave without thanking the owner. I felt that deeply. Without his help, I really might never have seen Wada again. Even if I ordered 100 cups of coffee, I would still be in his debt. "I'm glad to see you too," he said. "I mean, if I hadn't, I would have been guilty of larceny, so there's that." "No, that's a lie. I wanted to talk to you again." He laughed, scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. I was so embarrassed I couldn't look at him. Instead, I glanced out the window and saw a reflection of the two of us face to face. Outside, the fierce winter wind was blowing, and it looked awfully cold. I was deeply grateful that the two of us had been able to run into each other again. "Well now," Wada said, stretching happily, "let me pick up the tab today to thank you for lending me the book. That wouldn't bother you, would it?" I held up a finger and smiled. "Well, okay, maybe just 1 cup." Still being modest. He pretended to act shocked for a moment, then he turned to our waitress who was walking by and waved her over.